Insomnia is a strange thing. It makes you see the world differently, notice details that usually pass by. For example, how quietly the third step creaks on the stairs leading to the kitchen. I started noticing this after Kate and I moved in with her mother. Temporarily, of course, until the renovation in our apartment was finished. Vivian, my mother-in-law, insisted on it, though I was against it. "Nonsense, Sebastian," she said then. "There's plenty of room in the house, and I'm used to being alone." At 50, Vivian looked stunning. Years seemed to have no power over her. After her divorce, she lived alone in a huge house, and perhaps she really was lonely. That night, I went down to the kitchen around 3. Insomnia was particularly bad. New project at work, stress, unfamiliar house. "Can't sleep either?" I startled. Vivian sat in the semi-darkness, only the street lamplight falling on her face. "Sorry, didn't mean to disturb." "Drop these formalities." She got up to turn on the kettle. "Would you like some tea?" In the lamplight, I noticed she was wearing only a silk robe. I quickly averted my eyes. "Yes, thank you. Chamomile. They say it helps you sleep," she smirked. "Though nothing helps me anymore. Have you had sleeping problems for long?" "Since the divorce," she placed a cup in front of me. "And you?" "Work, stress, new house. Does my house make you uncomfortable?" "No, not at all." "Sebastian," she looked at me intently. "Let's agree. After midnight, we only tell the truth." I met her gaze. "All right, yes, a little uncomfortable." "That's better," she smiled. "Honesty is a good start." We talked until dawn. About work, about life, about how strangely circumstances sometimes align. She told me about her divorce. I shared my career fears. In the morning, meeting her at breakfast, I felt awkward. But Vivian behaved as usual, elegant, slightly distant, as if that night's intimacy had never happened. "How did you sleep, dear?" Kate asked. "Fine," I lied, catching my mother-in-law's knowing look. I didn't know yet that this night would become the beginning of something bigger. Something that would change all our lives. Our nightly meetings became a sort of ritual. Each time, descending to the kitchen, I hoped to see the street lamp light on her face. "There you are," Vivian smiled when I appeared around 2 a.m. "The kettle just boiled." This time she wore a silk pajama, dark blue matching her eyes. I tried not to notice how softly the fabric hugged her figure. "Rough day?" she asked, handing me a cup. "More like heavy thoughts. Want to talk about it?" I paused, choosing my words. "Sometimes I feel like I'm living someone else's life. You know what I mean?" "Oh yes," she laughed bitterly. "I understand too well." "Really?" "Sebastian, I got married at 20, had Kate at 22. All my life I was an exemplary wife and mother. Then one day I woke up and realized none of this was really me." There was such familiar longing in her voice. I often felt the same way. "And what did you do?" "Got divorced. Started living for myself. Late, of course, but better late than never." She lit a cigarette, blowing smoke out the open window. "And you? What's holding you back?" "Fear, probably. Habit. Responsibility." "To whom?" "To Kate. To myself. To everyone except your true self." She covered my hand with hers. "I know that feeling." Her touch was warm, comforting. We sat in silence, listening to the clock ticking and the sound of occasional cars outside. "You know what's strangest?" she said finally. "I've never told anyone about this. Not even Kate." "Why me?" "Maybe because I see a kindred spirit in you," she smiled. "Just as lost and searching." That night we talked about dreams. About what we wanted to be as children, what we lost along the way, what we still hope to find. At dawn, before parting, she suddenly asked, "Do you believe in fate, Sebastian?" "I don't know, do you?" "I'm starting to." She looked at me strangely. "How else to explain these meetings?" I couldn't find what to answer. Or maybe I was just afraid of the answer. With each night, our conversations became more intimate. We talked about things people usually keep to themselves. About fears, unfulfilled hopes, secret desires. "You know what I miss most?" Vivian asked one night. "Touch. Simple human touch." This time she sat closer than usual. Her knee accidentally touched mine under the table. After the divorce, I realized how much it means to just be close to someone, physically. I understand. My voice grew hoarse. Really? She leaned closer. And what do you miss, Sebastian? She smelled of flowers and something else, ineffably feminine. I felt my pulse quicken. Passion, probably. Real feelings. And with Kate? We've cooled off. She nodded understandingly. It happens often. People live together but don't feel each other. Her hand fell on mine, as if by accident. Her fingers were warm, slightly trembling. Vivian. Shh. She didn't remove her hand. Sometimes it's better to just be quiet. We sat in silence, listening to our breathing and heartbeats. The air between us seemed electrified. I think, she whispered, we're crossing some line. I know. And what are we going to do? I don't know. She stood up and her robe momentarily parted, revealing the silk nightgown underneath. I quickly averted my eyes, but it was too late. The image was already imprinted in my memory. Good night, Sebastian, she lingered in the doorway. You know what's scariest? What? I'm starting to wait for these meetings. Too much. I watched her climb the stairs, understanding that I was waiting for them too. Waiting for her. And that scared me most of all. In bed, Kate turned to me. Where were you? Couldn't sleep? Had tea in the kitchen? Alone? Of course. The first real lie. I knew others would follow. That night was special. A storm raged outside, and the kitchen was illuminated by lightning flashes. Like in a horror movie, Vivian smirked, pouring something stronger than tea. Want some? She was wearing that same dark blue negligee that I'd begun to hate for how perfectly it highlighted her figure. A little. The whiskey burned my throat. We sat closer than usual. Because of the thunder, we had to speak more quietly. I can't anymore, she suddenly said. Can't pretend. About what? You know? Her eyes in the lightning looked almost black. Something's happening between us. Something dangerous. I remained silent. She moved even closer. Tell me you feel it too. Vivian, the truth, remember? After midnight, only truth. Her knee touched mine. The air smelled of storm and her perfume. I feel it, my voice was hoarse. Too strongly. The first touch of lips was careful, almost weightless. The second, more confident. She responded as if she had been waiting for this for a long time. Reality dissolved in thunderclaps and lightning flashes. Only touches, whispers, and tenderness remained. It was like madness, frightening, but impossible to stop. Time stopped, leaving only passion and thunder rolls outside. Every movement, every whisper merged with the sound of rain. Later, when the storm subsided, she asked, What are you thinking about? About what we've done. Do you regret it? I looked at her, flushed, with disheveled hair, incredibly beautiful. No, and that's what scares me most. Somewhere upstairs, a floorboard creaked. We froze. Kate, she whispered. But the footsteps passed by, probably to the bathroom. We need to be more careful, I said, hastily adjusting my clothes. Or stop hiding. What do you mean? I don't know. She lit a cigarette with trembling hands. I don't want this to be just a fling on a stormy night. The following days turned into torture. At breakfast, we carefully avoided each other's glances, but at night, everything repeated again. This is madness, I would say, kissing her neck. I know, she would reply, unbuttoning my shirt. Each night was filled with passion and fear of discovery. We learned to be quiet, learned to hear the slightest rustle on the stairs. Kate became suspicious. You didn't sleep again? Work, project. And Mom's not sleeping either? How would I know? Strange. She never had sleep problems before. That night I told Vivian. She suspects. Of course she does. She's my daughter. What should we do? What do you want to do? Good question. What did I want? Leave my wife for her mother? Continue these dangerous games? End everything? I can't lose you, she whispered, pressing against me. Not now, when I finally feel alive. Her kisses drove me crazy, making me forget about everything. Every touch was like an electric shock. We should stop, I breathed. We should, she smiled. But not today. At that moment, the kitchen light turned on. Kate stood in the doorway. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. The three of us looked at each other, and in the silence, only the clock ticking could be heard. "I thought I was wrong." Kate's voice was surprisingly calm. "Hoped I was just imagining things." "Darling," Vivian began. "Don't, Mom, just don't." She sat at the table where I usually sat, took a cigarette from Vivian's pack. "You know what's strangest? I'm not even surprised." "Kate, be quiet, Sebastian. Let me finish." She took a deep drag. "I saw how you look at each other, how you fall silent when I enter the room, how you come alive around each other." Vivian sank into a chair. "We didn't plan." "Of course not," Kate laughed bitterly. "No one ever plans to fall in love with the wrong person." I flinched at the word love. Vivian and I had never talked about love. "What now?" I asked. "Good question." Kate put out the cigarette. "What now? Will you meet in secret? Run away together? Or just pretend nothing happened?" "What do you want?" Vivian asked quietly. "Me?" She stood up. "I want you to be happy. Both of you. Even if it means I'll be unhappy." "Kate, no, really. I see how you look at each other. No one has ever looked at me like that. Not even you, Sebastian." She headed for the door but stopped. "You have until dawn. Decide what to do next. And I just want all this to end. One way or another." When her footsteps quieted upstairs, we sat in silence for a long time. "So what now?" Vivian finally asked. I looked out the window. The sky was beginning to lighten. "I don't know. Really don't know." Dawn was breaking outside. The new day brought with it the necessity of decisions and choices. But until the sun rose, we just sat together, feeling each other's warmth and understanding that sometimes insomnia leads to things that change life forever. And what happens next? Who knows? Sometimes the best stories are those that remain without an ending. Did you like this story? Let us know in the comments what you liked. Subscribe to our storytelling podcast. Also, don't forget to like and ring the bell so you don't miss more interesting stories. See you soon.